The icy wind cut through the streets of New York like knives that Christmas Eve. People hurried past, arms full of shopping bags, eager to get home to warmth, family, and festive lights. But while the city glowed with celebration, just around the corner of a luxury hotel, a woman knelt beside a dumpster, trembling as she dug through a bag of garbage. Her fingers, raw and blistered, searched desperately for scraps of food she hadn't eaten in 2 days. That was the moment a black car pulled up, its headlights flooding the alley. From the back seat stepped a man in an expensive coat, his sharp features softened only by the small boy clutching his hand. What happened next would change all of their lives forever. The man was Richard Hale, a millionaire businessman who had lost his wife 3 years earlier to cancer. Since then, Christmas had been a painful reminder of what was missing. He tried to fill the void for his 6-year-old son Daniel, but even the glow of 100 decorations couldn't replace the warmth of a mother. Tonight, he was only out because Daniel had begged to see the city lights one last time before bedtime. As Richard tightened his scarf, his eyes landed on the frail figure by the dumpster. Something about her posture, the quiet defeat in the way she sat, made him pause. Daniel, with the innocent curiosity of a child, tugged on his sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, why is that lady in the trash?" The woman froze, realizing she was being watched. Embarrassment flushed her face, but hunger overpowered pride. She pulled out a half-eaten sandwich, brushing it off before meeting Richard's gaze. Her eyes were hollow yet carried a flicker of strength. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice cracked by cold and shame. I was hungry. I didn't mean for anyone to see me like this." Richard felt something stir inside him, a weight he couldn't ignore. He had built his empire on decisions, calculations, and deals, but in that moment, no amount of wealth mattered. He saw not a stranger, but a human being stripped of dignity, clinging to survival. Richard approached her slowly, his son still holding his hand. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "Emily." She didn't expect anything from him, only to be left alone. But to her surprise, Richard took off his leather gloves and handed them to her. "These will help?" he said. She shook her head, protesting. "I can't take those. They're yours." He crouched down so his eyes met hers. "Emily, no one should spend Christmas Eve in the cold, digging through trash. Come with us." Emily's first instinct was to refuse. She had been burned by false kindness before. She'd lost everything after escaping an abusive relationship, ending up on the streets when she could no longer pay rent. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But Daniel looked at her with wide, innocent eyes and smiled. "You can come see our Christmas tree. It's really big." That simple invitation from a child pierced through the walls she had built. Trembling, she nodded. At Richard's penthouse, Emily was overwhelmed. The glittering tree reached the ceiling, presents wrapped beneath it, the warmth of the fireplace glowing. She stood awkwardly by the door, clutching the gloves like they were treasure. Richard asked his housekeeper to prepare a warm meal, and when the aroma of roasted chicken and bread filled the air, tears welled in Emily's eyes. She ate slowly at first, afraid it might be taken away, but Richard encouraged her to take as much as she wanted. Daniel sat beside her, chattering about Santa and Christmas morning, treating her like family without hesitation. But as the night deepened, Emily's shame returned. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, pushing her plate away. "This isn't my world. You've been kind, but I'm just broken." Richard leaned forward, his eyes serious yet compassionate. "Emily, don't say that. Everyone has a story. Pain doesn't define who you are. It's just a chapter. You deserve a chance to start again." Emily shook her head, unable to believe it. "No one has ever said that to me." Over the next few days, Richard couldn't get her out of his mind. He learned she once worked as a teacher before her life unraveled. He saw not just a homeless woman, but someone intelligent, kind, and resilient. Slowly, Emily began to trust him, though fear lingered, fear that she'd become a burden, fear that his generosity was temporary. Meanwhile, Richard wrestled with his own doubts. He was a man who solved problems with money, but this was about something deeper, opening his heart again. Daniel, however, saw none of the complications adults carried. To him, Emily was simply Miss Emily, someone who listened to his stories and laughed at his jokes. One night, as Richard tucked his son into bed, Daniel whispered, "Daddy, can Miss Emily stay? She looks less sad when she's here." Those words cut deep. Richard realized Emily wasn't just someone he helped. She was someone who helped them, too. She brought warmth back into their home, something money had never been able to buy. The challenge wasn't over. Emily still carried wounds of the past. When Richard offered to help her find a job and a place of her own, she panicked. "What if I fail again? What if I end up back on the streets?" she cried. Richard gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll face it together. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Slowly, Emily began rebuilding her life, with Richard's support and Daniel's unconditional love reminding her she was worthy of more than survival. By the next Christmas, Emily was no longer the woman digging through trash. She had regained her confidence, working as a tutor, and was part of Richard and Daniel's lives in a way none of them had expected. That Christmas morning, as snow fell softly outside, Daniel ran to the tree and hugged both of them. "This is the best Christmas ever," he declared. Richard glanced at Emily, and she smiled through tears. What she had said that night in the alley, "I was hungry. I didn't mean for anyone to see me like this," had been the start of something far greater. The story wasn't about wealth or pity. It was about humanity, about choosing to see the broken parts of someone and still believing in their worth. For Richard, Emily, and Daniel, Christmas no longer symbolized loss or loneliness. It became the reminder that sometimes the greatest gift is not under the tree but the chance to heal, love, and start again.